happened. According to Surah 19, Jesus began preaching as soon as he came out of Mary's womb. This story comes from the 6th century Arabic Infancy Gospel.
Okay, so David Wood made some points about the Quran copying off certain apocryphal books or fables, as he calls it. So I'm just going to be going through one by one his claims one by one to see if they hold up, or if the Prophet Muhammad did copy off those sources. Now, this is the first point he brings, or the first point I'm going to be refuting, is the Arabic Infancy Gospel. Did the Prophet Muhammad copy off the Arabic Infancy Gospel? The issue here is that the Arabic Infancy Gospel came after the Quran chapter 19 was revealed. We read in Neil Robinson's book, Christ and Christianity and Islam, page 19, that the book, or the Arabic Infancy Gospel, came after Islam or the Quran, or at least 50 to 100 years after Islam. So, according to Neil Robinson, this book postdates Islam, or this book came after the Quran chapter 19 was revealed. But there's some problems with Neil Robinson's analysis, and I'll be getting into that in the next slide, because there's a major problem with what Neil Robinson is saying, and that problem is the record of this book. Now, another problem with David Wood's claim, and Neil Robinson's claim, I would add, is that there is no record of this gospel, the Arabic Infancy Gospel, until the 9th century. By the 9th century Syrian church father Ishaq of Merv, at least 300 years after the Quran chapter 19 was revealed. So there's no record of this book until the 9th century, 300 years after the Prophet Muhammad died. Why is that? Because this book wasn't written until, I don't know, like the early 9th century at the latest, right? And the reference for that is there, the other Bible, page 407, according to scholarship. And another problem is all the manuscripts of this gospel date to the 15th and 16th century, at least 900 years after the Quran chapter 19, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Thus, this gospel came after the Quran, not before the Quran. There's no record of this gospel until the 9th century. And the reason why is because it didn't exist until the 9th century. There's no record that this gospel, predates Muhammad or Islam. So the story of Jesus talking as a baby was first recorded in the Quran, or was first revealed in the Quran, and then the Arabic Infancy Gospel came 300 years later, probably copying off the Quran and not the other way around. So the conclusion we can draw from the data, or from this information, is that David Wood is dead wrong, and he's talking out of his fat ass, because this gospel came after the Quran chapter 19. There is no record of it until the 19th century, until the 9th century, and the manuscripts date to the 15th century, at least 900 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Thus, this gospel came after the Quran and the death of the Prophet Muhammad. At least 300 years after Islam. This gospel came 300 years after Islam. Thus, there's no way the Prophet Muhammad copied off this gospel, because this gospel came after